Following the financial crisis of 2007-8, the world finally started to ask some deeper questions about what was wrong with the way that we've set up the economy. The resounding answer to these questions was, everything's fine, we've just got trapped into short-term self-interest. If we were instead to focus on long-term financial self-interest as the goal, then everything would be well. This enlightened self-interest, what we call logic 2, is what the world is currently appearing to be pinning all its hopes on. But is it going to work? Well, to assess that, we need to know what it means for the governance frame and hence how we decide strategy and therefore act. Well, logic 2 means that while the goal of governance direction remains the same, make as much money as possible, in order to achieve that goal, you have to create strategy that fits and operates within parameters, governance direction parameters, that mean that at the same time those strategies protect the health of social and environmental systems, non-financial capitals, and the health of stakeholders that you rely on to be able to make as much money as possible in the longer term. So what does that mean at each level of the system? At the macroeconomic level, it means that GDP is still the goal, but that strategies that harm GDP in the long term should in theory be overlooked in favour of those that don't. And the Stern Report for Climate and the Dasgupta Report for Biodiversity were attempts to say, wake up, you are destroying GDP growth in the longer term if you carry on creating strategies that also destroy climate and nature. At the meso-organisational level, and that does include government, the same is true. Net zero is an example of organisations that are trying to contain their strategies, ensuring that they don't emit more than a certain amount of CO2 equivalent. And it's at this, when we get to logic 2, that for organisations, ESG starts to actually make sense, but only to the extent that you're enlightened, of course. Lobbying against ESG becomes nonsense because companies start to see its current flaws and will start to lobby collaboratively for more and better regulation of ESG. So they might lobby against bad ESG, but they're not going to lobby against ESG because they understand that's the way that they can level the playing field, and they recognize that their long-term financial self-interest relies on that kind of reduction of harm. Stakeholderism also comes into play. As Ed Freeman said, you rely on your stakeholders so that you need them to be healthy. Why would you destroy your stakeholder health? And at a micro individual level, we start to take some bigger actions like lobbying politicians and taking effort to find more ethical companies to buy from on the issues that we recognize are going to harm us over the longer term. So thinking and acting long term, no one can argue with that. It's absolutely vital for a positive future. And it changes a lot. It also not only lengthens but expands what you have to consider. And you have to start thinking about knock-on effects. But logic 2, long-term self-interest, is still just a tweak to business as usual. In the book, we outline 6 main reasons why this is the case. What do you think?